Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. I am your host, Justin Dixon, and today we've got Arti Raman on the podcast. She is the founder and CEO of Portal26, which is an AI adoption management platform. So this is a really cool episode because we talk a lot about the security risks of unleashing AI unknowingly into your business. It actually provides a lot of insight into how your employees are using AI, what best use cases to use. So it's a really cool, interesting platform. And she started the business back in 2019 under a different brand and a different vision. And then when AI was unleashed in late 2022, she pivoted the business and is off to the races. So I think you'll get a lot out of this episode. So let's get Arti on the pod. Interested in hearing conversations with private equity leaders, CEOs of private equity-backed companies, and startup entrepreneurs where they share their stories about their career journeys, starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, and the important role that having the right talent plays in building a successful business, then you are in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. Here's your host, Justin Dixon. All right, Arti, nice to meet you. Thank you for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak on your platform.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, well, let's jump right in. Maybe give everybody that's watching and listening to this a little bit of an overview of who you are, where you are, and what you're up to right now.
Amazing. Thank you. So my name's Arti Raman. I am the CEO and founder of Portal26. Portal26 is a SaaS solution that helps enterprises adopt AI. And what's neat about us is we discover everything that's already being used. We secure it. So there's a security aspect, but then we also help you get value from it. So there's value realization elements that are quite unique and valuable because no one's in the business of AI just, to be more unsafe. You want to get something out of it. So things like measuring impact, finding opportunities, where to build, why to build, how to build, and once you build, how to monitor that and keep it safe. So it's really exciting to be in this space. We have been at this since 2023. So we were officially first out the gate. And we are so excited the market is meeting us now because, everyone needs it and loves it. So thank you again.
Interesting. Well, before we jump into more around kind of what the business is and how it works, how did you start it? Why did you start it? Kind of let's talk about I like to hear people's origin stories.
Yeah, so origin story predates AI, which is really interesting. So I started the company in 2019. I used to be at Symantec. At Symantec, I had a lot of exposure to M&A. Part of my job was competitive intelligence. So my team supported Symantec's acquisitions, et cetera. And so, having a look at all of what was happening back then. So 2019 was when ransomware was a big deal. You'll recall there were large breaches and lots of, most of us have had our information already compromised in the US. So part of what motivated me was to try to solve that problem. And I came at it from a data security standpoint. So searchable encryption is kind of what that company was about. So can you keep your information in these large databases and then help applications and people work on it without decrypting it? Because if you could do that, if databases get compromised at scale, you don't have 100 million people losing their identity information. So that was kind of like the genesis of that company. It was actually really successful, but you don't sell encryption. And you asked for a story. I'm giving you a story now. So you don't sell encryption without NIST certification. So it took us 2 years to get that, right? Because then, you want to be really secure and not make amateur mistakes. So in 2021 is when we took that product officially to market, fully certified and everything. And it was a great year. We landed customers in, regulated spaces that cared. And then we did our first venture round in very early 2022. And it was for that encryption company. Great run that year. It was a fantastic year. So lots of it, added money. Investors were happy. Everything was good. But then November 2022, ChatGPT hits the market, right? And we've spent 3 years building this community of CISOs and CIOs around us because obviously, right, waiting for our product to come to market. And so as any good founder should do, I went back to that community in November and December 2022 and said, hey, here's this thing, ChatGPT seems to be taking off. What do you think? Is this something we should account for? What should we do? And we're pretty close to, I want to say there were about 56 companies around us at the time. And they were like, oh, this is real. This is real. You should do something about it. And so we did what is pretty unusual. We made a pivot at a time when things were going well. And so, right, so we took this vault that we had, which is where you can do search and analytics without decryption, and we decided to populate it with AI transactions so that we can analyze them, right? Because we wanted an enterprise to give us everything AI, every call, every, whether it's direct, indirect, employee, east, west, north, south, everything. And we wanted to analyze it in real time to do different things. Security being a big one, right? So make sure people weren't doing bad things. Productivity was another, analyzing consumption, optimizing investment. So we sort of had this grand plan founded on the basis of our ability to real time at scale analyze pretty sensitive information. So we took about, I want to say 9 months to kind of build out this vertical AI consumption analytics app on top of that vault. And we launched in September of 2023, this new product. We also changed our name. We used to be called Titanium. We changed our name to Portal26, kind of a new direction.
Yeah.
And we haven't looked back since. The uptick was fantastic. For a while, we coined the term shadow AI. It wasn't called anything, but at the time, just discovery, visibility, knowing what's happening and having the analytics to do that was a big deal. Then 2024, it became about security. 2025, shadow AI became really mainstream. And now we're leading the charge on value realization, productivity, but it's a really mature platform deployed globally at really large companies and wonderful things. But the journey has been interesting because no one expects you to do a pivot when things are going well. So lots of questions to answer. Investors invested in encryption. They got AI, so there's a journey there, but things are looking good now. Everyone's happy. So
how did that go over with the investors? Because obviously it seems like they invested in your company in kind of one lane. Things are going really well. They're probably excited about everything. And then you go back to them and say, oh, by the way, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pivot into rebranding, building another kind of use case, et cetera. How did you kind of smooth that over with investors to, make them be as excited as the original investment as they were in kind of the new direction?
To tell you the truth, it was a real challenge. It really tests you as a founder because I worked really hard to get luminaries from the specific fields of encryption to invest in us and join our board, right? And so you're talking about a generation of people that invested in PGP and, fully homomorphic, like things that were very technically specific to what we were about to do. And AI was brand new. So a lot of people didn't understand it. And we live in a bit of a bubble. So I've got investors from the Valley, but also investors from outside the Silicon Valley, middle of the country. And so, just a lot of questions on, is it necessary? Should we not wait, etc. And so part of that 9-month process for the pivot, part of it was, we've got the teams building, but we also have to make sure that the board is happy with what we were up to. However, to our benefit, right, this thing got hyped very fast. So as we were building, there were forces outside of our boardroom that were generating excitement. We had our Silicon Valley investors communicate with the out of the Valley investors, etc. And eventually, then it's a story with a really happy ending. But it does test you as a founder because what you're doing is you're building 2 companies with 1 investment, right? We didn't go do another round. We actually redirected our capital to this, including the capital given to us by our customers. Right.
Okay.
And so then the tier 2 of that is, what about the customers that bought an encryption, right? What about them? And so I'll wait for you to ask me that, but there's 2 different journeys there.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was actually going to be my follow-up is obviously not only did investors provide you capital and things were going well, you obviously sold your vision of encryption on paying customers, right? And it sounds like you are focused on large enterprise companies, not, your mom and pop SMBs. So how did that kind of transition point with them? Did you continue down the encryption path and going to keep that legacy, quote unquote legacy platform alive for them? And then, oh, by the way, we're building this, or like, how did that conversation go with customers?
So I think we got really lucky because that original vault is a huge competitive advantage. It's a roundabout answer to your question. So that vault is a tremendous competitive advantage in the market. No competitor has it, no incumbent has it, and no one has the enterprise permission to store that much of the information forever in that much of an enriched form, because we can't see it. Like, we can get compromised and we can't lose it, right? So we get all of this. And because it's the first layer of our own global SaaS, we invest a lot into that platform. So what has happened is our existing customers have had the benefit of a platform that continues to be really solid. And now ours is bigger than any of our customers because we're serving all these global customers in that one vault. So it's been positive. We also don't refuse to sell it. Now, we're not a two-headed beast, so it's hard to market to things that well. But it was 3 years of doing that, right? So there's a lot of trust there. So we don't turn customers away. We have customers that have both. They'll use, we'll sell them directly the encryption technology, but we'll also, have them as AI customers. But that said, I want to say it's like 1/4, 3/4. Like, the AI business has really taken off.
Yeah.
The other neat thing, again, you didn't ask for this much nitty gritty, but it's interesting.
No, I love it.
I think they're merging because we can do, think of us as like encrypted search. Because we can do encrypted search, you have all these vector databases that are now in that AI stack, right? Which also need to be secured. Elasticsearch, OpenSearch, things like that, right? So we see it merging. Like, now in 2026, I'm seeing customers that are actually AI customers that care about protecting their vector data stores, which we can do transparently, right? So you don't have to have a moment where your data's in the clear just because you have to, put it in your vector. So it's interesting. So I am seeing a world, maybe next year where it becomes one offering.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And obviously, it seems like you've been on the bleeding edge of that transition from kind of pure security to AI. I'm curious because I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I guess, what are some things that companies need to think about when bringing in some type of AI, whether it's a ChatGPT or a Claude that they intend to almost roll out to their, all of their employees? Like, how do you coach people or tell people, or what should people be thinking about when it comes to security as it relates to AI that they are, forcing or unleashing on their own employees?
Well, so we break it into 5 buckets because we're forced to have some structure because, you have to have a roadmap. So you kind of have to organize yourselves. So we think that knowing what's going on is incredibly important, because even if all you did was publish a policy, because, you have to have some due care because things are going to happen. So how do you have due care? So first level of due care is to at least have a policy, right? So you can say, hey, we have instructed our workforce to be doing things responsibly, but you can't have a policy if you don't know what you need a policy for, right? All AI is not the same. All applications are not the same. If you bring agents in, now you have a whole nother world. Agents can spin up other agents. Just a lot going on. So we definitely advocate turning the lights on. Now, the problem with legacy solutions is they can't tell what is AI, what's not AI. What you don't want is to be stopping people from going to Google, but does Google have AI baked in, right? So it becomes really challenging. Plus, not enough vendors are openly disclosing where AI is being used either. So you could have a relationship with an application from a long time, legacy relationship that now might have AI. How do you govern all that? Anyway, long story short is we advocate discovery. And I'll spare you the selling, but, we do all these things. But so discovery is the first thing, and which can be done systematically, both on endpoints where people are working as well as on the network. So you can find all these calls. Then we worry about risk, right? All the data and privacy and IP related risks. Because, while I think here where we are, the world has caught on and people generally know they don't want to put sensitive things inside AI, but you never know. There's older people, younger people, like people in fields that aren't that technically savvy. So you want to make sure that transparent to the user, you're catching things, much like a traditional data loss prevention tool. The only difference is that AI is smart, right? So you don't have to have things that look like sensitive data for it to be sensitive. You could have
Okay.
context, you could have things like that, right? So that's the other thing to think about. Intellectual property is a huge problem because anything you send to a public model becomes part of that model. So you have to make sure that either you've got the private version or something else, or your data is being used to train. So these things were bigger problems in 2024 because people found their patents were public and things like that. So then after that, I think agents present the biggest risk because the more autonomy we give to AI, the more AI can go do things. And so when you hook your agents up to your databases and your emails, and now they can do things and get you in trouble, and the law will say the liability is on the human, right? So those are the sorts of things, and there are systematic ways to deal with this, but definitely many organizations are locking things down, which is, head in the sand strategy because employees are using it anyway. So I know it's a bit wordy, my response, but if you can direct questions towards specific areas, I can maybe talk a little bit more.
Well, I know that a lot of companies start with almost like a bring your own device scenario, especially small businesses. I work a lot with startups and kind of mid-sized companies. So I'm imagining bigger companies may have more guide rails or guidance on what you should and shouldn't do. But when you're a small business, you're like, hey, AI is out there. It's free or very low cost if you get the kind of paid version. How do you prevent your employees from firing up ChatGPT on their own business laptop and then using personal data or company data to then upload into it, and maybe they're not paying for it, so it is training on that data? Because AI is, I guess, available to anybody. I guess, can you prevent somebody from doing that? And if so, how do you protect yourself as a business to minimize as much risk as possible?
Yeah, so tools like ours, there's different kinds of solutions. There's tools that live inside browsers, there's tools that live on the network, there's tools that live on the device. And so if you have a tool that lives only on a device, then if the device is personal, you don't have any presence on the device, you can't do anything. So browsers used to be popular, but then you have to have a specific browser, and people may not use the browser that your company gives. So we abandoned the browser thing a while ago because browser isn't even where all the action is happening. Now it's agents and applications. But we elected to be on the network or endpoint. So if you have a corporate device, we can sit on the endpoint and always on the network. So if we're on the network and you have a personal device that's going on the network, then the state of the technology can absolutely find anything that's inadvertent or malicious and prevent it from happening. So this could be, bad data and things like that. We can also do things like mask it. We don't want to get in your way, so we can just mask anything that we think might be sensitive, and then you can still do your work. And we can do that on the inbound as well, right? If something bad comes in from AI because it's hallucinating, or someone hacked it, then you can stop that as well. And as in everything cyber, it's not 100%, so you're going to kind of have some confidence interval, so it's not too noisy and things like that.
So guess I should think about it more as you're almost the gatekeeper of me using a ChatGPT or something of AI or an agent that is trying to access larger models, and you kind of make sure that whatever information they are sharing or asking is not sensitive or private, both what they're asking and then also the response coming back is not kind of providing some type of hallucination. So you're kind of that almost middle layer between kind of access and opening the gate or closing it essentially.
Absolutely. So what we do is we basically enforce security policy. So this policy can be different for different organizations. We obviously have out of the box policies. You can be regulation specific. So you can say, oh, I'm financial services, I'm regulated, and we can give you out of the box. You can have company specific things as well, but whatever policy you decide you want to enforce, that can be enforced on the network. So for example, you can say anyone in finance, HR, legal, or tax, we want to look at, any documents that are uploaded because, there's probably some things we don't want this stuff going out to public. So maybe if they do something like that, you stop it and you can educate them. Hey, we notice you're doing this. We've got an internal AI for this purpose. Why don't you go do that over there? Things like that are possible. Or you can say, if it's software development, we don't want it happening on public models because it's our proprietary source code, right? So for that, hey, we've got this license with GitHub Copilot, let's say, or
Yep.
whatever it is, Cursor, right? So then you can do that. So any policy a company has, we can enforce both on the way out and the way in.
Got it. So to kind of pivot a little bit to the actual like business and being a founder and a CEO and in this world of AI, and you're an AI company, I'm always curious about how you're using it in your own company, right? You're very thoughtful around the security of the clients and the customers, but how do you use it as a founder? I'm always curious about what you're using it as to kind of keep your kind of maybe access more information or get more data, and then how are you kind of deploying it out to your employees?
Yeah, so we are extensive users of AI. We also eat our own dog food, so we deploy ourselves and also other network technologies, etc. So we have a few guiding principles. We pull down models. So we use private. We pull down models so that we are not sending anything outside of our network boundaries. And so, everything is contained. We also use a lot of AI in software development. In fact, I would say our productivity is at least, 4 to 6x what it used to be before. So we are constantly releasing new product, etc. We mandate the use of AI for software development in our engineering teams. It's just very effective. The other place we have started using AI is in our go-to-market. So we do have, the sales development process, marketing content creation process, etc. There's always human in the loop, but we do use a ton of AI. Where we used to be buying enrichment services, if you know what I mean, right? Like we would be buying information to learn about the market, etc. We were subscribed to like 3-4 different services. We have found that by designing this around AI internally, we are actually just getting a lot more precise information that our sales teams can use. So that's really helpful. We haven't, and we don't expect to reduce headcount. We expect to grow, but we expect to grow smart.
Yeah. One thing I'm seeing is a lot of all the layoffs in tech and non-tech are getting the headlines of we're replacing all these, or we're laying off all these people because of AI. And what I'm seeing in the clients that I have is some of them are commenting they're not laying people off. They are just not hiring as many people as they normally would have because they are able to be more productive. Maybe they would have hired an SDR or a marketing analyst to do some of the work that you're having an AI do, or you're paying for other services that you would need a human to kind of go research and kind of pull all that data in and all that fun stuff. So it's kind of almost this like no hire, no fire scenario where companies are growing. They're just not growing with the same kind of proportion of headcount that they maybe normally would have.
Yeah, I think in our case, it's really interesting because, you said startup, I said scale up. So the difference is that the activity level has skyrocketed because the market has matured. People know they need this. In fact, it's not just security, like CFOs are on our platform asking questions. Why are we spending $23 million with this company on AI? Like, what are we even getting out of it, right? So the need for analytics and understanding where to invest, how to invest, why to invest, how many of my licenses are being used, if I'm paying for GitHub and Cursor, why are people writing software code on DeepSeek, things like that, right? So all these questions are being asked, and so the demand has skyrocketed. We couldn't hire fast enough. But AI is helping us, right? So I have no idea what we would have done in the absence of this much of a fire hose, but I do know that we would have absolutely not been able to cope without AI. Yeah. And so a bit of it is masked, right? And also we continue to hire because, we still need the humans to direct these processes and make sure we're not making mistakes and make sure our customers, get the good touch because ultimately it's about human trust, right? So.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing that I think is interesting is that, and I'm seeing it some in sales and kind of some of these more enterprise sales motions where, you can build kind of agents and AI to do a lot of the research and some of the SDR, BDR work, but humans still want to sell to humans, right? They want to buy something from a human. They want to sell, hear from a human. I guess, where do you kind of see the industry or just the AI world going from okay, we're now able to really build agents that have more security or more guide rails around them so they're less risky than maybe they are right now? Is there a tipping point where you're building or hiring more agents versus hiring more people? I'm just kind of curious about your outlook on kind of the world of AI at the moment.
I don't know how it will change in the future. But at the moment, AI is so new and so uncertain that you're still selling trust. And so we haven't found any success without human touch in sales,
Yeah.
like none. So I'd be really nervous unleashing AI by itself or allowing direct, unsupervised communication, because I know the other side is counting on, sometimes me personally. And so I also find that I would have thought by now consulting firms would have been displaced a little bit,
Hmm.
but they're only doing better and better and better, because the more, intimidated people are from how, this complex technology, if you really kind of look under the hood, the more they want the human sign off, even though they know that, there's a lot of AI behind the scenes doing that as well. So I think I don't see the balance changing anytime soon, because I don't think we're done with AI yet. I think this
Yeah.
is a version of AI. There's going to be another version of AI, and we're going to be doing bigger, better things. But I think the workforce composition will change, and I think the types of education we provide, in schools and colleges will change, because we all
Yeah.
need to be aware of kind of how this works.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if you to kind of unpack that a little bit more around kind of the future of the workforce. Like a lot of, people thought that software engineers were going to get displaced massively, and that's what's being kind of touted. But everybody I talk to is hiring more engineers because there's more code to write, there's more things to do, and engineers are writing less code, but they're now being able to be more architects versus just hands on keyboard the whole time. But I guess some of the things that I've heard around early career hiring has dropped and is kind of a little bit more challenging coming out of a college. I guess, do you see that continuing, or do you see, maybe new jobs being created or new career paths being created for kind of the early career talent?
So I would agree on the first part. I don't think software engineers are going to be out of a job. I think you need to know what you're doing to write good quality code that can be foundational.
Mm,
Right. If it's a little app you're writing to, do something fun for yourself because you can and you're not a developer, well, that's a different thing. But if you're building something, at scale that you need to then build as a foundation for other things, I don't think people are going away anytime soon. In fact, they should not go away, right? Because AI knows what it knows based on, state of the art at the moment. So I think that's their jobs are safe. Um, and that's not just architects. I think developers' jobs are also safe. What you do need to know is how to wield AI,
mm,
because we will not even allow a developer to not use AI anymore. So you cannot be, stuck in the past. You have to know how to use it, and there's no job security problem. But I do think the early careers, the people coming out of college, are having a difficult time and are going to continue to have a difficult time. And I think the reason is that our education system will have to catch up and impart skills that aren't easily replaced by AI, because traditionally we have entry level people doing what we might call grunt work, right?
yep.
And AI is so well suited to grunt work that it makes no sense. It's like the
Yeah.
only thing that we should really trust AI with. So I think then you would say, well, what are the new opportunities? And I think there are going to be more jobs created than lost, but it will require upskilling, right? Which means we have to teach, etc. That said, I think fundamentally this is going to be good, for notwithstanding bad people doing bad things. But when the base level of knowledge rises, right, you can access information easily, you can build on it easily, you can synthesize it easily. Now all of that human brain power can be used to do amazing new things, right?
Yeah.
Whether it is like energy sources in space or whatever it is we're going to do in the future, right? So, but we do need to kind of take everything along with us. And that means different courses in schools, and it means different mindset and, maybe different majors than we had in colleges. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I guess as you think about kind of, we're recording this in kind of early July 2026. I guess, where are you trying to, like, what are some milestones you're looking at for your business as we kind of go to the back half of 26 and maybe into 27? Like, obviously it sounds like you're in the scale up mode, so it sounds like things are going well, but like, what are some things that, you're kind of charging towards?
So for us at the moment, I want to say are like 80 to 90% through our original roadmap, which
Mm,
was basically discover, secure, I forget what all it is, but eventually to value realization. We think that value piece is still being built out as companies are maturing. But once we get there, we think that, the next unlock for us is going to be in the data itself. Because so at the moment we're facilitating, right? Let's use this data to help you deploy, help you adopt, help you consume smartly. But then there's also all of this business insight and all of this, like the inner workings of this new AI enabled workforce that's also encapsulated in this vault. And, so what can a company do if they can see how their organization is working? And this was something that was never available before. Because how did we ever capture our work? We didn't. We all worked, and then we did the output and we ran the business. But now with AI powering work, we are able to capture how work is done in all of its minute granularity, right? We know exactly how the work is produced and how the human is thinking and how it's stitched together. Everything is captured in this because we have permission to have all of this information, whatever, all the different sources. So I think that's like the huge big unlock, because that can inform an organization on how to maybe reach, and I'm just guessing, right? Like maybe it's a competitive question, maybe it's a strategy question, maybe it's, product development question. But we think that's the next unlock. But I also think the market's like, a little bit away from getting there. But we're really excited to be building this asset. Did that even make sense, or was it like?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think there's a lot of just opportunity that you're kind of a little bit on the forefront of, and that's kind of a good and a scary place to be, I would imagine, because you're excited and everybody's kind of kind of drinking the Kool-Aid on AI and how it can be helpful. But I imagine your solution is kind of needed, because if you just throw AI at everything and you build a bunch of agents without any kind of guide rails or guidance, you could really open yourself up to a ton of risk. And it sounds like that's kind of where you and Portal26 would kind of come in and kind of help help support that kind of build out, but also to help put some guide rails and some security around it.
The risk isn't just security, it's also financial. So like we are finding like there's 2-3 different types of, autonomous AI risk. Things like token explosion. You could figure something out in 20 seconds between you and I, 2 seconds, not even 20. And you could have two agents talking to each other and never converging, right? You go to lunch, you come back, your annual budget is exhausted. I'm not kidding, right? Happens over and over again. So that's as much of a risk to the business, right? We see organizations diverting funds from other activities into their token spend because it's just out of control, right? And they don't know how to stop it, and they don't know where it's needed and where it's not needed. So part of what we do is token analytics. Like we will look and tell you, how many are you burning? Should you be burning? So that's one type of risk, right? Then there's drift. What was this agent supposed to do? What is it doing? Should it be doing it? Is it over entitled? Right? So security, the way we think about it is like data loss, all that. But then business risks from AI go beyond security. It's how you're using it, etc. Right? So we're definitely doing that as well, which CFOs love.
I was just gonna say, it's so
They
funny
love
that you brought up the token explosion, because you hear about the engineer that spent, they're paying him $500,000 a year, and he spent $10 million building an app or whatever because of the token usage, and it's like, well, was that a better use of the time, or could you have hired 2 engineers to help, essentially do the work that the $10 million for the tokens was done? So it sounds like you can look across the enterprise and see who are the super users, and maybe almost probably help guide the company, say, hey, John and Sally over here are really good at, token utilization, but they're also very highly effective, but Sally is not, or John is not. And so you could almost provide some insight into how their human capital is being used, as well as their, tokens and everything like that.
100%. And some of these things can be done in real time, right? So this is like you were saying, where would you go next? So like, give you an example. If you've got access to all the work that's being done across the company, that's been done recently, that's relevant in the department or whatever, and someone, gets on and says, oh, I want to instruct AI to go off and do this project. Theoretically, we should be able to say, hey, before you kick this, million token job off, here's somebody that already did this before. Or by the way, here are artifacts that were created. Or, let's have a look at your prompt, because we've seen only, 30 billion of these in your company. And let's tell you what you can do with it, or let's have a look at. So all of this is possible, and we're like building towards this. We've got little features, I'll call them micro features, in this available now, where we can like look at it and say, hey, sure. But as we get, as we learn more, and we do some real time AI on the edge as well, where should we insert ourselves and what would the customer want us to do? But all of this is possible. It's just about analyzing the data fast enough in real time, right?
Well, yeah, there's so many. I mean, I've worked for small and big companies, and I don't know how many times there were, oh, hey, well, you should go talk to Bill over here because he already built what you just mentioned, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
if I wouldn't have talked to that one person, I would not have known that this is already existing, or a kind of version of this already exists. Where it sounds like with your platform, you can say in real time, be like, hey, you guys should connect because this is already being built. And also you said something that's kind of fascinating around, because you mentioned around like being able to harness AI, I think earlier on, it's like prompting is going to become the new language, and being able to actually manage and harness and write the right prompt and be able to control it, I think is interesting. And it sounds like that's another kind of potential addition or current feature that your platform can also help educate people on, what's the best use cases.
Correct. Oh, and then you mentioned use cases. One of the things we do, which our customers love and we're so unique, is we'll tell you what your use cases are. Because you may think, right? So currently it's spaghetti on the wall. It's like, oh, let's get the AI committee together, or let the head of, the department say, oh, I run marketing. I think we should be doing content creation and this and this and this, right? You build it, they may or may not come, but hey, your data already has all the demand signal you need. You just need, because we're there, we're looking at it, we're analyzing everything. We can tell you your top use case is software development, and guess what? It doesn't sit in engineering. Because you've got these really creative people sitting in accounting or whatever, finance, that need to do fraud detection, and it's just too hard. And they've figured out a way to do it, and they're doing. And I'm totally making this up, right? I don't know that software development sits in finance, but whatever it is, right? We can tell you what it is down to the granular use case, and then we can tell you how to build an agent for it safely. So we can say these are, like, for example, if we uncovered, and this is true, so I won't give you too much detail, but we uncovered in a really large organization, think like 100,000 employees, and they were using AI for RFP responses. Okay. There's like 50 things wrong with that, right? And so, but really well. They were selling more, they were really effective, so huge return. So what we are able to do in the product is do like this risk value matrix. Think of it like a quadrant. Okay. High risk, high value, right? And you look at anything that's high risk, low value, you kill it, shut it down. Anything that's high risk, high value, you migrate it internally, right? So things like that, right? So great example of good use of AI, but risky. Anyway, so we see examples like that all the time that you wouldn't know because, there's no big coordinated RFP AI response process. Anyway, you get the
Obviously,
gist.
I know it's probably more security platform, but I really feel like just the way we're talking about it, there's so much more insight that people can get, or companies can get on, super users, how they're using it, what their use cases are, that would have a more financially positive impact. It's very fascinating. We could unpack this onion and peel back every layer on the next couple hours, but I don't want to get super, super deep because we could probably get a little more technical, but this has been a lot of fun to really learn about Portal26 and kind of what you're building. I want to wrap this up a little bit with a 3-pack of questions that I ask every guest. First question here is, what is an influential book that you've read or heard about that you would recommend to the audience?
Well, I don't get a lot of time to read, unfortunately. This is the business of a startup. But most recently, I read a book called Now by Richard Muller. I think it's called Now, The Physics of Time. Like, it might have a subtitle to it. And this book, basically, it's living room physics, which I love physics. So fascinated by that. But what it does is it takes apart what people believe time is. And it talks about how the universe is expanding. And so you're not just getting new space, you're getting new space time. So, so you can't really have time travel because the future isn't here. I mean, it's really interesting, and I don't want to go into all the details, but it kind of, scratches that intellectual itch a bit. You don't have to work. You can just read about it. So I do recommend that book. It's an easy read. It's not tough.
Physics does not sound like an easy topic to read, but I will take your word for it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's living room physics. It's
Yeah.
popular these days. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. All right. Second question here. What is your favorite thing to do outside of work when you do have a little bit of free time?
Well, I paint. I paint
Okay.
large paintings, and it's acrylic, so it's it's a medium that is forgiving. And
Okay.
and they hang all over my house. And I've done a show, one solitary show for starting this company, sold a
Very cool.
few, and yeah, so
So,
it's a
so you're
good way
pretty
to
good.
decompress.
You're not just doodling like I would do. You're actually pretty good.
Good as a personal preference, but yeah, I think I'm okay.
Very cool. No, that's awesome.
Thank
All right.
you.
Last question here. Favorite vacation spot?
Oh, this is always heavily influenced by my last set of travels.
Okay.
And lucky for both of us, I did a trip to Europe. Like I've only been back like a week since I did
Okay.
this, and I fell in love with Amsterdam. It was my
Okay.
first time. It was everything that we don't have here in suburban Bay Area. It was like architecture, it was culture, people, history. They've got the water, they've got the canals. It was just wonderful. It was just a little warmer than I would have liked,
Mm,
but I think I'm going to go back multiple times to
very
Amsterdam.
cool.
So that's going to be
I,
my answer for
you're the
today.
second guest that has mentioned Amsterdam in the last couple of episodes.
Mm.
So it has not been a place that I visited, but definitely will be added to or moved up the go-to list as
I
well. So
highly recommend it. Like, I found an old bookstore, and in there I found a reprint of a book from 1733, a
wow.
photographic reprint, right? So it's like closer. It was so amazing. So for a painter, like for an artist, basically called the Temple of the Muses. This is in Dutch. And the original work was basically taking all the mythological, stories of the time. So like Atlas, holding up the
Mm,
world on his back, and they drew it on copper plates. Okay, like
wow.
maybe a little too much information, but they're etched in copper. So if you're an artist and you kind of, enjoy that form, it was really amazing. So that was a find. I found a really old math book from like 1940, and my son plays piano. We found an old
Mm,
Chopin manuscript. It was just lovely. It had everything. So
got it. Well, I will
yeah,
definitely talk to my wife, and maybe that will be our next Europe adventure
do
for
it. Let me
sure.
know how
So
it goes.
awesome. Well, Arthi, it's been a lot of
Amazing.
fun. If people want to learn more about you, connect with you, learn more about Portal 26, what's the best way to connect?
So my LinkedIn is open. So
Okay.
it also has my email on there. And I want to say if I was smart or stupid enough to put a phone number, but I definitely am open to meet. So I can be contacted directly. You can just get my contact information off of LinkedIn. And Portal26 is portal26.ai, 26 the number. So very easy to find as well. We also show up all over Google and Answer Engine and everything. So
Very cool. Arthi, it's been a lot of
thank
fun. I
you.
really appreciate the time and thank you for being a
Thank
guest.
you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was a pleasure meeting you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Take care.
I hope you found at least one actionable insight from this episode of the Growth Capital Podcast, your one-stop shop for insights from private equity leaders, CEOs, and startup entrepreneurs on starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, as well as the role having the right talent plays in growing a successful business. It would be greatly appreciated if you would rate and review this podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and drop us a comment so we can expand the audience of this podcast. Thank you for all your support, and don't forget about upcoming episodes dropping every Tuesday.